Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month in our newsletter was Mid-Year and Fiscal Year Closes with a Bang. So we're going to talk about our numbers in the month of June, this show being taped in July. I have a couple great guests on the show who are appraisers, Gary Minahan of Affiliated Appraisals and Sean Fitzgerald of Fitzgerald Appraisals. And in the last segment, we're going to talk about some of our great Plymouth County history. Let's go right to the numbers. June was a booming month for recordings at the Registry of Deeds, particularly near the end of the month. We recorded 1,295 deeds in June, more than the 966 in May, up 1% from the 1,244 last June, and for 6 months of the year is pretty much a match with last year, although everything seems to come in at the end of the month. Our deeds for the month of June were higher than any month in the last couple of years. The next image you're going to see is of mortgages. There were 1,923 mortgages recorded in June, more than the 1,735 in May. However, down 5% compared to last June and down 7% for the first 6 months of this year. While people are still using mortgages to purchase properties, a lot less people, based upon rates that are bumped up a little bit, are using mortgages to refinance prior mortgages. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure deeds. Foreclosures have been very troublesome in Plymouth County over the last number of years. Since the 2008 crisis, there were 67 foreclosure deeds in June, more than the 48 in May, 31% more than last June, and through the first 6 months of the year, 11% lower. And the next image you're going to see is of a foreclosure notice. A foreclosure notice is the first document we see that shows a property is in trouble. There were 65 foreclosure notices recorded in June, down from the 85 in May, 22% less than last June, up 1% for the first 6 months of the year. And a lot of lenders are getting caught up with properties they've neglected for a long time. And the next image you're going to see is of every single community in Plymouth County, 1 city, 26 towns, and the foreclosure deeds and foreclosures orders of notice for each of those towns. You can see they vary by town. Typically, Brockton, Plymouth, and Wareham have the highest numbers. I want to say that we have a free training room at the Registry of Deeds in Plymouth. We have 3 offices, Plymouth, Brockton, and Rockland. But in Plymouth, the first Thursday of every month, we do a hands-on training for how to efficiently search our records. If you go online, there's a free property fraud alert you can sign up for. And we have a lot of great displays in our building down in Plymouth. Our guests in the next segment are Gary Minahan of Affiliated Appraisals and Sean Fitzgerald of Fitzgerald Appraisals, discussing the role of an appraiser in the real estate market. So we'll see you in the next segment.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can stop to make sure someone is okay.
We can warn someone when their drink isn't safe.
And disrupt the situation.
We can
get someone the cab.
Or walk them home safely.
We can make campuses safer for our friends.
Our roommates.
Our classmates. Our fellow human beings.
We cannot be bystanders.
We can.
Intervene.
It's on us.
all of us.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always try to do something educational in nature. We've had commercial real estate brokers, we've had assessors, we've had a lot of realtors as part of the show, and in the past we've had appraisers, and my two great guests today have been on the show before, and it's Gary Minahan of Affiliated Appraisals. Welcome, Gary. Good to see you again. And Sean Fitzgerald of Fitzgerald Appraisals.
John.
Nice to see you again, Sean.
Thanks for inviting us.
So you guys have been on this show before and have done a great job. In this particular show, I think it's important that we share with people the role of appraisers, how you guys got into the business. A lot of people, when they talk to their lender, are told, well, we need an appraisal, but they don't really know what that is, what the process is, and I think it's be helpful to go through that. So Gary, I want you to tell a little bit about your business, how long you've been in this business.
I actually started in the early 80s as a real estate salesperson. And back then, you didn't have to have a license to be an appraiser. All you needed to do was say you were an appraiser, get a business card, and you were an appraiser. Licensing didn't go into effect officially till 1993, after a lot of issues that were going on in the appraisal business. So my business started, I started probably doing appraisals around 1985, and I worked for a couple of different companies. And then in 1999, 2000, right around that range, I started my own business. And I've had people working for me off and on. For the most part, I'm self-employed and have, just one person in my business, in my office.
Great, you're based in Abington.
Based in Abington, yep. I cover the South Shore pretty much.
Great.
Yeah.
And Sean?
I'm Sean Fitzgerald. My business is Fitzgerald Appraisals. I'm a certified general real estate appraiser, which allows me to appraise anything from a mobile home to the John Hancock building, though I've never done that. I started out as a computer programmer right out of college and worked in the computer software business before anyone knew what software was. I did an awful lot of traveling as a salesperson and decided enough was enough. So I decided to do something local, and I too went into brokerage, but it wasn't quite for me. Nights and weekends, get along with people pretty well, but the demands on time were tough. But I'm very detail-oriented, I guess you could say. And I help build what's called the comp report. I think when people see the newspaper every week, what's sold in their town, I help develop the computer systems for that, and decided to use my analytical talents to become an appraiser.
So let's talk first of all about the role in an appraiser. Your primary client base are lenders, is that correct?
Not for me,
okay,
but for most appraisers,
okay.
Yes. My primary clients are attorneys, divorce attorneys,
okay.
estate attorneys, CPAs, people who want to know the value of something for other than lending purposes.
Okay.
And I also do work for municipalities who sometimes need to have their assessments defended at the appellate tax board, and sometimes they're taking land maybe a foot wide by 100 feet long so they can widen a street or put in some sewer or drainage. So a little bit different than most appraisals.
And Gary, your
Yes,
business?
my business is primarily residential appraisals. Most of my work be with banks and mortgage companies. I do probably 25% of my work with private appraisals, people who need work for an estate purposes. So that would be kind of around. My focus is not as wide as Sean's. Obviously, he has the license to do everything, so to speak.
So how is it that you go about starting an appraisal of a piece of property? What kind of resources do you use?
Actually, it's gotten a lot easier for us because everything is now online. I remember the days when we have to go to a town hall, and Easton was one of the towns that they'd only give you 3 field cards and you needed 4, So it was tough, and I know a lot of back then, like I say, the technology has made such a difference in our lives. Basically, we don't have to leave the office. We can do pretty much the entire appraisal except for the inspection.
And so what kind of assets do you use, Sean, mostly?
Well, typically the online assets that Gary mentioned, we're pretty computer heavy in the office. We, in addition to assessor's records, we have to get all kinds of detail from the Registry of Deeds. Thank you.
Sure.
And And then sometimes we have to get input from surveyors, site professionals, look up databases on whether or not there's contamination in the neighborhood. You know, if something's close to a gas station, is there a possibility that the tank's leaked and that the ground that's being appraised, or the land that's being appraised, has gasoline underneath it? So there's an awful lot of things to go looking at. And sometimes, too, we have to refer to cost estimate manuals. Marshall and Swift is one, and RS Means is another. They're national statistical manuals that basically tell you what it costs to build a building. And you do a bunch of calculations and use your judgment as best as possible, and hopefully you'll come up with what we call two approaches to value: the sales comparison approach and the cost approach.
So do you use Department of Environmental Protection websites at all? Do they have all this stuff online?
Yes, there are websites for DEP, Environmental Protection. There are traffic websites. There's something called Mass GIS, which anyone can use anywhere in the world. They can type in an address and it will show you an aerial view of the property. Everyone's familiar with Google Maps, but this goes an additional step further. You can layer in the floodplain information, and you can layer in the wetlands information, and you can layer in the zoning. In some communities, you can even identify which homes have children in them, because fire departments want to make sure if they respond to a fire that they know to get everybody out of the building.
So in a typical appraisal under your offices, Gary, is it a paper copy that people end up with, or who does that go to? What is the result of your study, I guess?
Well, we would send an email and basically a PDF file to the bank with a completed report, and they would print it out and send it off, a printed copy, to their client.
And the lenders would review that?
It would be reviewed before it went to actually they sent it out.
Okay.
Once in a while there'll be, an error on it, grammatical error, or something that the bank wants to be concerned with, or is concerned with, I should say. But that doesn't happen that often.
And with a residential appraisal, do homeowners get a copy of that usually?
Yeah, they're required to, by law, to send them a copy of the appraisal.
If they request it, or does it go automatic?
Automatically.
It does,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And Sean, what is the end result of your work?
Typically, I send a PDF file as well, but almost always I produce two bound, signed letters. Well, they're 40 to 80 page reports, so that there's an official documentation. Some of my appraisal work goes to court, and they want to know that what I produced was what everybody got a copy of.
So you both talk in different aspects of it about more institutional clients. Do you ever get questions or contact from individuals themselves on their own?
I certainly do.
Yeah.
Yes. People will call and want to know what something's worth prior to putting it on the market, or they'll want to know, for both Gary and I, what a property was worth on the date of death of a family member for estate purposes.
Yeah. So you've both been appraisers for a period of time. What's changed over the last 10 years?
Basically, it's the technology. Every time we have an access to a program or something that's on the computer or accessible through a computer, it just makes our lives so much easier. Before you'd have to drive to the town hall, you'd have to drive to the registry of deeds. Now you still have to drive to the house or with the property that you're appraising. But like John was saying, there's so many resources that we can get at. It just saves us a lot of time.
Now, your thoughts on that, Sean?
it's tremendous, the amount of data that's available to us. The flip side of that is it's available to everybody else too. So we have people who say, well, why didn't you use this comparable? And shouldn't it be higher because of this, that, or the other? And sometimes they're right, but sometimes they just want a high value so that they can get a big loan or avoid a big tax bill. I guess they'd want it low in that situation.
So values, sorry Gary, you're going to say
No,
something?
that never happens to me, Sean.
Well, clearly, values are really high right now.
Oh, it's crazy.
And they've been going up last 5 years,
Yeah.
very, very high. But you still must get people that challenge your numbers.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, and there are many people who don't understand how certain things work. Assessments typically lag the market at least 1 year, sometimes as much as 3 or 4 years. So you'll have
Just for the public, explain what the difference between an appraisal and an assessment.
Well, an assessment is for tax purposes.
From the town or city.
Exactly. And it always looks at information in the past. By the time you get your tax bill, the date upon which it was determined is usually 11 months old, and it's using data that's 12 to 24 months old. So if there's a rising market, a $500,000 house in this market today might be assessed at $425.
Right.
Now, when the market turns and heads back down, then the assessments end up higher than the market values.
Your average sale prices that I report in a different section of this show has been over 8% going up, and no end in sight with a short inventory.
There is an end in sight. No, seriously, I've started to see the wealthier communities are kind of topping out, maybe pulling back 0.5%, and that's an indication that things might slow down in the future.
So when somebody's challenging your appraisal, Gary, they would get it from the lender. Normally, it would be under what they were looking for, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't bother you, right? And how do you approach that part of it?
Well, we'd have to find out which comp or whatever area that they were trying to say that we were low on. It's the appraisal report is a complicated document. It's very difficult to read from a layperson's point of view because it's a condensed report of a whole bunch of information. So we take adjustments for things like location, lot size, condition, things like that. And a few years back, we used to put down like average, good, superior to describe the differences between the comps. But now it's C1, C2, C3, C4, C5. There's 2 pages in the report that now we have with just the definitions of what a C1, C2, C3, C4. And I found, I don't know about you, Sean, but since that time they put this information in there, I very rarely get anybody questioning on the reports because I think they're, for the layperson, if you don't have any knowledge about, if for a real estate broker or somebody like that, they might have some experience. They just don't understand what goes into the report and what the report's actually telling them, And the reports are so subjective too. I mean, you could call something a C2, and I could call it a C1, and Sean could call it a C3. I mean, there is a range there. And it's really up to your interpretation of the data.
So let's talk quickly about the future of appraisers. Sean, any thoughts?
Well, that was a good segue right there.
Sure.
All those detailed documentation about condition 1, condition 2, used to be good, average, fair, poor, etc. And now all those numbers are going into a giant database. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the big lenders, all have these databases, and they know as much as we do. The computers analyze those things. If I use a comparable in my report and Gary uses the same one and we differ on the quality of the construction or the condition of the current improvements, the computer's going to pick that up and one of us is going to get a call. So.
Any thoughts on that, Gary?
I haven't had any calls. No, it is complicated, and I mean, it's just not, an appraisal is just not an appraisal. It's a document that it goes on. And look, for the FHA, whoever puts the value on the property, that's the value that stays on it. If they shop it around, it's going to still be $200,000.
Well, I know we're coming close to the end of our time. I got a signal, and I want you to share your information. But I will say there's a lot more topics that I could talk about that we find interesting now. The impact of global warming on properties that are on a river or on a coast. Certainly around here, 13 or 14 of our towns in Plymouth County are on either the Atlantic Ocean or Buzzards Bay. It's a great concern to people. Maybe at some point in the future we can get into those issues. But I'd like you to share your contact information, Gary.
Sure.
How people can reach you.
Yeah, it's Affiliated Appraisal. I'm in Abington. You can reach me at 617-872-2264.
Now, are you officially a Plymouth County company now?
No, the company's still in Easton.
Yeah, it is, okay.
But it's Sean Fitzgerald,
Yeah.
FitzgeraldAppraisals.com.
Okay.
Best number to get me at is 508-586-1234.
Great, thank you.
My
As
pleasure, John.
always, nice to
Thanks
see
for
you.
inviting us. Scott.
Thanks,
See you.
Gary. Good, yeah. Great, there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on.
Yeah. Welcome back to the Registry Report. My name is John Buckley. I want to thank Gary Minahan and Sean Fitzgerald for the great job they did in describing the role of appraisers, the processes they go through to value property. For most people, it's a complicated process, but you can see they're very professional in the way they approach things. In this segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature. We talk about our great Plymouth County history, holidays for the month are 4th of July, Independence Day, and the 15th, National Ice Cream Day. Last month, we talked about some of Plymouth County's great lighthouses. This month, we're going to talk about some of our beautiful beaches. And first of all, we're going to talk about White Horse Beach. White Horse Beach is in Plymouth. It's a great stretch of sand south of the main town of Plymouth. It's a village along the Atlantic Ocean. It's a well-known public beach on Cape Cod Bay. It has a small business district down there, which includes the White Horse Post Office, a general store, and immediately offshore Flag Rock, painted every year for the 4th of July. It's also adjacent to the well-known Priscilla Beach and Priscilla Beach Theater. However, it contains a recognition of a very myth that goes along with that beach, and it's a story of a young woman named Helen who was prohibited by her father, a physician, from marrying a young sailor she had fallen in love with while nursing him back to health after he was shipwrecked off the coast. Helen, distraught over her lost romance, rode her white horse into the surf and was never seen alive again. Locals claim that the ghost of Helen and her horse come out in foggy night. The story of Helen and her white horse has been passed down through generations, and you can, as you drive down through White Horse Beach, you can see on one of the properties a big white horse that recognizes that story. The next beach you're going to see an image of is Gray's Beach Park in Kingston. It's one of Kingston's most beloved public spaces. It's a 6.5 acre park offering both shady and sunny space, tennis courts, basketball hoops, and public access to the beach. It's named for a 17th century individual who arrived in that area named Edward Gray. He arrived in this new world in 1643 and was one of the area's wealthiest men at the time of his death. During Kingston's shipbuilding heyday, several wharfs stood out on that area, and only Delano's Wharf still remains. In 1936, town officials looked into ways with providing access to the waterfront, and the town meeting voted to purchase the property and establish the park. The WPA era, they cleared a lot of swampy areas, and the town built a bathhouse in 1950 and added a concession stand not long after. Grays Beach remains a favorite for town residents and visitors. And last but not least is Duxbury Beach. Duxbury Beach is a beautiful white sand 6-mile barrier beach currently owned by the Duxbury Beach Reservation, a nonprofit trust. It is unique and ever-shaping based upon the flow of the Atlantic coast on the Massachusetts South Shore. Access to the beach is achieved by either traveling over the wooden Powder Point Bridge, built in 1892, or through Gurnett Road. The barrier beach serves as a recreational, scenic conservation area and is a natural breakwater for the towns of Duxbury, Kingston, and Plymouth. Duxbury Beach and its adjacent salt marshes continue to be home to countless species of wildlife and beach creatures. And I will say the continuing vigilance of individuals that are guarding that beach continue to make it one of Plymouth County's most wonderful places. So I want to thank Brockton Cable Access for helping me put this show together. This is my 93rd show. Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards from my office have been great in helping me organize this, and Brockton Cable Access allows me to burn a CD and send it off to the communities throughout Plymouth County and share with people, for most people, information about what is their most valuable asset. So have a great summer, and we'll see you next month.